Hello, so something a bit different today. As you can see, I'm out and about, and it's actually quite topical because it's rather windy and blustery, which is why I'm actually standing a bit lower down and not as far up close to the moors as I'd hoped to be. So I hope that you can still see the moors behind me there. But this is quite topical because what I want to talk about today is this idea of wintering, emotional wintering. And whether or not you've heard the term, it's really about the fact that ourselves, our emotions are a bit like the weather seasons, in the sense that sometimes we do need to be a little bit raw, a little bit low, a little bit almost in hibernation mode, a little bit quiet, a little bit restful. And I think sometimes that's something that we can forget. And it's quite interesting when you think really about my work, and if you know my channel, I talk a lot about the landscape and the seasons and the different seasons and the importance of the different seasons and how different things happen in the different seasons, and that is part of the cycle of life. And I think we have to remember that the same is true of us and our emotions. And so what I wanted to do on here today was to talk a little bit about that, but in the context of our art, if you like, and some top tips. And I think, this year I have been feeling particularly at this point in time, sort of it's that edge between autumn and winter, and this feeling of low and the need to rest and the need to hunker down a little bit, really. And I think that's probably true for a lot of us. It's been a particularly tough year, I think. For me personally, my art, it's been quite a challenging year. I'm sure that's true of a lot of artists because of the market. Also, with everything going on around us across the world, that is really challenging for us to be sort of a part of and be thinking about all of the time. And then for me personally, I have quite a lot of family concerns at the moment. Both of my parents now have dementia. So that is, something that is also hard to manage. And so I think it's not surprising that we have these points in our timeline where we do need to hunker down and to be a little bit like winter. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to just really talk about today. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to share just a few ideas and thoughts and some top tips of how we might be able to accept and go with this as a natural part of life cycle. There's a great quote from Laura Stevenson, and I will put the article from which this quote comes from in a link to it in the notes. So number one, I think this is kind of one that I think I have historically been really bad at, and that is to rest and recuperate and potentially to read. I think reading is something that I've not done so much of until most recently, and it depends. You might prefer to do other things. You might prefer just to sit and watch something, or to listen to something, to listen to music. But I think this idea of resting and recuperating is really important, and something which I think all too often gets forgotten. And interestingly, as I'm talking to the sofa here, I have a little friend who's come to attend, and this is something that she is brilliant at. In fact, she teaches me not so much about reading, she doesn't do a lot of that, but she certainly does rest and recuperate. And dogs have this great ability to live in the moment, and I think there's much more of that would be more beneficial if we did more of that. And I think there's a temptation, isn't there, or certainly for me, to think, read, I must go and get an art book, I must go and learn about X, Y, and Z. Actually, no. You don't need to go and learn something. You just need to relax and enjoy something. And that might well be a book that has got nothing to do with art. But as we all talk, art and life are so intertwined that inevitably the books that we read do end up being about our art. So this idea of emotional wintering is explored in Katherine May's book. I'm currently reading this book actually, and it is quite amazing. And this is a memoir, and in it, Katherine talks about the importance of allowing ourselves time to rest and recuperate and repair in what she calls these fallow periods of life. And she looks at how other cultures deal with it and how that can be useful and relevant and helpful for us in looking at our own ways of wintering and recovering and recuperating. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually writing, journaling if you like, in an old notebook, and I have dipped in and out of doing this, and this is what I'm doing here is what they call morning pages, where you just literally write whatever you're thinking, 3 pages, and you do it very regularly. And I'm just trying it just to see how it helps. And I guess the idea is that you just get rid of stuff that is kind of bottled up inside of you otherwise, and you just do it regularly, and it sort of helps to, I suppose it just helps you to get to the important stuff, because you kind of almost data dump from your head, and sort of general stuff gets just thrown down on the pages, and you don't necessarily ever go back to it or read it. It's just a way of sort of processing things, really. So I'm trying it, and there are loads of different ways of journaling, but I think journaling at this sort of time when things are quite difficult can be really helpful. And there's quite a lot of evidence that it really helps with a lot of things to do with anxiety and so on. And I have, in my artwork and in general in my life, I have found that just writing really does help. You don't have to be a great writer. And there are different ways of doing it. I'll put some links actually in the notes, but I just wanted to mention that one of my top 5 things to do to deal with this whole wintering, emotional wintering, is to journal. Number 3, organise or tidy our workspace, or whatever space it is. I mean, in my case, it's my home studio. And I just find that having a good clear out and getting things a little bit more organised always works a treat, as a way of creating that breathing space and that feeling of being a little bit less cluttered and stressed. So, and number 4, plan for the spring, plan for when things improve. And by that, I don't mean write copious, detailed plans, but I do mean dream about the wonders of 2024 maybe. And in my case, I'm looking forward to going out every month in my camper and producing images, and I would love to be able to produce a calendar at the end of all of that. So each month I will be sharing with you those trips and those things that I'm doing out on location, because that is something that is really connected and important to me. And that's maybe something that you could think about for yourself as well. Just dreaming about times when it's better. And finally, number 5, by all means create. I am going to be creating in the studio. I'm obviously developing another online course, so of course I'm creating. But rather than tackling big paintings, getting a little bit swamped, I think that working in small sketchbooks, keeping things simple, is really a good way of tapping into our creativity and making the most of it for our emotional well-being without getting stuck or too stressed about it. So that is my number 5. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this slightly different take on my videos today. And I am working on my new online course. So please make sure you're signed up to my newsletter if you want to hear about that. And I'll catch you next time. I'd love to hear your comments, and thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.